we started tailing off, which is predictable in that situation. You know, they realize that your opening day, you're not going to stay at that. We settled around the 200s to 250 mark. We were very viable. Okay, things were happening. They were giving in the offering. They could afford the pastor. They could afford to pay the electric. We were able to put new paint on the wall. A lot of things were happening. Plus, we had the money, the seed money from CDF, and a lot of good things were happening. Interesting thing happened. We went into a leadership meeting, which I had retained a group of core leaders from the previous church. I've learned a very important lesson. If you're going to renew and if you're going to start afresh, you need to start afresh with new leaders too. Just write that down. That's worthwhile. Don't have time to explain it, but that one's worthwhile. The reality is we had a group of core leaders from the previous existence, and they came in, and they came up with this idea. It wasn't exactly in this words, but you've probably heard it like this. It was something along these lines. Thanks a lot. We'll take it from here. And the reality was that they were thinking that they could handle it. And so all of a sudden, my vision and my leadership was relegated to a hireling role, which in the eyes of submission, I don't necessarily have a problem with, but the fact that God was being squelched in this whole process was an issue, and it was ugly. As a matter of fact, CDF came in, they said, we're going to pull your loan if you revert back to this old way. And so that sense of urgency was created, that they were afraid. Anger and fear had crept in. You're changing who we are. And so I had to launch into a series of preaching that said, listen, the message is the same. From the time when Jesus died on the cross until he comes again, the message of him being the redeeming power of this earth is exactly the same. That will never change. But the way we do things has to change. It happens all around us in society. Why can't we get it through our thick skulls in the church that methodology must change to keep up with society and to keep up with the world? But the fact is that the message does not change. So we created a guiding coalition. I gathered around me about 5 or 6 folks who became the new leadership core. It was ugly. It ended up in my threatening to resign. It wasn't really a threat. I did resign. I handed the letter, and it ended up in these new folks who could outvote them. Remember? Coming to that old leadership and saying, and it was a God work is what it was. They came to that old leadership and they said, no, this is our church now. And so after a few weeks of just kind of cooling my jets, they invited me back to lead again. And we went on from there. But we had to create this coalition, this guiding coalition that gathered around me. And they said, Dan, we've got your back. They said, we believe God has put you here for a specific reason. And whatever you want to do, we're going to support. Now, they were in charge of the money, and they didn't do whatever I wanted to do. But the reality was, it was okay. Because they had my back, and they were a supporting, guiding coalition to bring about the change that was very real and that was very interesting.